in interesting times. This week's stories. People across North America share with us how they help care for the earth. In Washington, D.C., the museum tells the story of storytelling. In Canada, monster trucks invade Vancouver. In Florida, Tampa's streetcar creates an interesting commute. Plus, in Hawaii, Governor Ige praises Filipinos for promoting diversity while preserving their culture. Hello everyone, I'm Alan Basoyahe, bringing you stories from around the globe. And this is Eagle News Washington, D.C. Weekend Edition. Recently, hundreds of cities worldwide, big and small, observed Earth Hour, where lights are turned off for a whole hour to promote climate change awareness. Eagle News spoke to individuals across North America and asked them what their contributions are in helping protect the Earth, aside from symbolically turning the lights off 1 hour a year. Take a look.
We do a lot of recycling at home, like with our cardboard. We take in our bottles all the time. We try our best to compost too. And to encourage others, we just tell them to do it. It's good for the environment, and it's a good practice, especially for future generations.
So I make sure to separate the cardboard with like garbage and food into like recycling and trash. And how I encourage people is I help people do it.
And for Earth Hour, I will turn off the lights in my room for 1 hour.
For Earth Hour, I'm going to turn off my switch for a whole hour.
The things that I do to help preserve the environment are by recycling water bottles, cans, and glass bottles. And I'm also aware of where I throw away my food and where I throw away my trash, and then I also conserve energy. The way that I help others also preserve the environment is by constantly reminding them that there are a lot of ways to actually preserve the environment. Easy stuff just like carpooling and even using reusable containers.
I preserve energy mostly because I was trained as a kid to turn off all the lights when it wasn't in use. I preserved water, so when washing dishes, brushing my teeth, and lessening the time in the shower, because who needs that much time in the shower? And also my grandma really helps me out. She encourages everyone to get solar panels, and yeah. So I really see a lot of people littering, and so when I see it and I can control it, I definitely tell them. I definitely go out of my way to throw it away myself if they're too lazy or anything. For example, I went to a concert and this girl was holding her water bottle and she was like, "Do you mind if I put it on the floor?" And I was like, "Nope, I mind. I will throw it away for you." Yeah, littering is terrible. Also, being mindful about where trash goes, separating it, so recycling, trash, compost, being able to know where everything goes and separating it, even if I can help someone else do it. I feel like that is a great impact on everyone else as well.
I try my best to recycle as much as I can, and also washing my car when it's raining outside, and also watering my plants in the afternoon. Also trying to prevent people from producing waste littering and throwing trash out in the freeways. I encourage my boyfriend to recycle because they drink a lot of water, a lot of bottled waters, and I also encourage my little brothers to. It makes it fun for them to squash all the cans, and then they make it an activity, so it's more fun for them.
Quite a bit I try to do. I know at home there's a lot I've been learning from my wife and from friends about composting. So we do have a compost bin, and we also try to recycle as much as we can. The other thing that I've been noticing more that helps a lot is actually, now that I have to worry about my electricity bill, is I turn off my power strips before I go to bed and when I go out for long trips, and that actually saves quite a bit on the energy bill. Other things I try to do is I use a toaster oven instead of our full oven when I try to bake meals for just myself, just so it doesn't take as much energy to heat up or as long. Outside of the house, let's see. I try to take the public transit. It kills two birds with one stone. I don't have to worry about parking, but it also, I just go on public transit so I don't drive my own car, have to waste the gas. And I just don't like idling too. So when I go up to the city, I know there's a lot of places where I'm just stopped at a red light or just waiting for traffic. So,
as an inhabitant of the earth, I would pick up any kind of trash I see from the ground and make sure that it goes in the right container. If it's a recyclable item, then I would want to put it into like a blue container. Or if it's just, tissues or any kind of, junk that needs to be thrown away in a regular trash can, then yes, I would make sure to put that in the right proper place.
Some of the things I do to help the environment is by recycling, sorting out my trash, making sure everything goes to where it's supposed to go when you're getting rid of the trash. That would be lead by example. So I make sure that if I'm recycling, I show people, hey, I'm grabbing all these cans, putting in the recycling bin, making sure all the paper is gathered in one corner for paper recycling.
Well, we recycle at work, and I use reusable straws, reusable utensils like forks, knives, and spoons. I have like a little pack that I use, so that's what I do. We typically will carpool to volleyball together, and that's like 3 to 4, 5 times a week maybe. So we save gas. We recycle at home together, and I'm trying to encourage my coworkers to also get reusable utensils since we have plastic ones at work right now, so we should be using the reusable ones.
Yung pong pagtitipid ng mga everyday things na ginagamit po natin. Kagaya po kapag namamalengke po ako, nagdadala po ako ng reusable bag at yun po ang ginagamit ko instead of yung mga plastic po na ginagamit natin sa grocery store.
Personally, I haven't heard about Earth Hour, but to preserve the environment, I would cut off the water while brushing my teeth or cut off the lights in rooms that I'm not in. And to encourage others to do it, I would tell them about it and also practice it around them.
To help to preserve the environment, I'm pretty much what I normally do is put things in a recycle bin where it's needed, plastic where it's needed, papers where it's needed, especially at school. So in order to help others, I would probably be a leader to lead that, and I would pretty much let people know that the environment is needed because it's the earth that we live in. So yeah, I would tell others as well that to preserve the environment, to keep things recycled, and to put things where it's needed. So that's how I would do it, and I would just continue to be a leader to lead others to recycle.
I recycle anything that is able to recycle, and when I go grocery shopping, I use reusable bags, stuff like that. Things that you can reuse, like reusable cups and reusable straws, all those things. Here at our job, I typically have the kids collect stuff for like arts and crafts projects instead of going out and buying unnecessary things that you have at home, like toilet paper rolls and like just all stuff like that. They come here and they have them, and you can reuse them and make arts and crafts projects, and typically the parents keep them till the kids are in their 30s, so you have it for a very long time.
To help to preserve the environment, a lot of things I do is recycling. So everybody in our neighborhood has a recycling bin, and we always make sure that at least we try to put effort of filling our recycling bin to the top, because some people don't even use it. Another thing we do is always unplug our electricity stuff. It actually saves us a lot of power and money. So every time we leave, we always try to unplug and stuff like that. How I encourage people is just by trying. It takes one little step to make a difference. So if you don't usually pick up trash, pick up trash. If you don't usually recycle, try recycling. It's actually really rewarding to help the environment, knowing that you live in it, so you want to stay in it.
I make sure I never leave the water on while brushing my teeth. That is very important. Also, when I'm in a room, if I leave the room, I make sure to turn off the lights. And then turn them back on when I come back in, because that's also important as well. Those are two simple things you can do. Also, reusable water bottles are your best friend. Also, bags are really great for storage. So, there are plenty of ways to save the earth if you just think about it and keep it simple.
As much as possible, I like to use natural light when I'm in my house. I don't like leaving the lights on at night. I make sure all of them are off before I go to bed. I turn off the faucet when I brush my teeth so I don't waste that water. As much as possible, my parents and I try to recycle when we can.
So they're pretty big. We recycle a lot. We try our best to turn the lights off whenever we're done using them. And whenever we go on trips, we unplug TVs and devices. And
I encourage my friends to recycle and pick up trash. And I also encourage my friends at church to do the same.
When we come back, we will take you on a quick tour of the museum where the story of storytelling is told. Eagle News Washington, D.C. Weekend Edition will return in a moment. Welcome back. You are watching Eagle News Washington, D.C. Weekend Edition. Eagle News' Eliza Gonzalez-Manglitmot will take us to the museum where the history of news is told and where visitors are reminded of how those before us fought for the freedoms we now enjoy.
News is nothing new. Here at the Newseum in Washington, D.C., the mission is to increase public understanding of the importance of free press and the First Amendment and how they apply to life today.
It has been said, when Washington, D.C. is awake, the world is awake. And when the world is awake, news should be too. Located between the White House and the U.S. Capitol is the Newseum, a place that tells how storytelling, from telegraph to radio to newspaper to television and to today's social media, came to be. With 6 floors and dozens of attractions to visit, PR Director Sonia Gavankar said it is a 2-day ticket for a reason.
There is so much to see, and I've worked for this organization for almost 20 years, and even I haven't seen everything and heard all the stories that it holds. There are definitely some highlights, some top 10s. The Berlin Wall, for instance, on our concourse level. Half of our visitors that come to the museum are school-aged children, so the Cold War is ancient history to them. So getting them to understand the freedoms afforded to the people in West Berlin, and then on the other side, communist on the east, seeing the graffiti on the west side, seeing that color, seeing that expression, and then going on to the east side to see it all stark, really explains freedom of expression and the rights afforded in the First Amendment. And as you go through the entire space, there are so many little moments of that. We do look at the history of the world through news coverage. So just here in our Pulitzer Prize exhibit, you see those moments that you think, I remember where I was when that happened. And it starts a conversation on the freedoms of that First Amendment, the 5 freedoms that are on the front of our building in stone. We have the Today's Front Pages gallery that's out in the front of the building. That's the newspapers from around the world today. So we are looking at ancient history and present. We have actually in our gallery here in the kiosks behind me, we have actually all of the Pulitzer Prize winning photos that have ever been taken, as well as interviews with all of the winners. We have the highlight moments of history. We have the highlights and the lowlights, the most saddest, gut-wrenching moments, but also some moments of absolute pure victory. This is from the 1993 Olympics. What I love about this photo is the celebration. They're looking so happy. But when you think, what have these women won? They've actually won the bronze medal. This is the excitement over the bronze medal. So it's so wonderful to see. This is what the Olympics are. It's the whole world coming together in sport. This is actually a picture taken by Carol Guzzi. She is the most winningest Pulitzer Prize winner in the history of the competition, and a woman. Kind of great. This is an incredible photo taken during the Kosovo refugee crisis. This is, again, a story about war, but a story of happiness during war. These are families separated by barbed wire, but passing the child across them so they can actually share this happy moment of reuniting as a family. So the joy and sadness that's brought out in war. This is the Oklahoma City, an image from the Oklahoma City bombing that happened in 1996. This is one of the few images that was actually taken by not a professional news photographer. This gentleman was actually a wedding photographer, had his equipment in the back of his car on the day of the Oklahoma City bombing, ran to get his equipment and took this incredible photo. There's a lot of conversation, especially in journalism classrooms, on ethically, should this photo have been taken? And you look at the bright colors, you see the blood on the child, you think, is this an image that should be in newspapers? But then you think back to as recently as the Vietnam War and Nick Ut's famous image of what is commonly referred to as Napalm Girl, fully nude, full frontal nude image of a girl whose village was bombed by napalm, and she's running through the streets with absolute terror. So all of these moments we discuss, we talk about why journalists took the picture, how editors helped put it on the front page, repercussions that happened, and why it was a right or wrong choice. In this case, there's a great conversation in our kiosks in the interview of how the photographer took the picture and how the mother felt about having the image taken.
The Touch and Explore feature gives visitors who are visually impaired to experience the museum as well.
Tactile experiences in a lot of places in the museum, where you can actually touch and feel. Not only can you read the caption here in Braille, but you can actually experience what that photo feels like. So if you have low sight or low vision, you can actually experience it here as well. And we have several of those images up. We also right now have an exhibit on the Marines in Tet, so the famous Battle of Vietnam 50 years ago. Many of those images have been reproduced as tactile experiences for low-sighted people.
Other highlights of the museum are the interactive newsroom, where visitors get to role play as either a reporter or a camera operator. The Pictures of the Year section displays 7 decades of award-winning photographs. The Smith Big Screen Theater features breaking and up-to-the-minute news. Govan Carr said news broadcast is a changing landscape, and the museum's aim is to document these changes for the future generation.
It's such a changing landscape, and we cover the history of that in our internet, TV, internet, and radio gallery. We look at that electronic news. So going back to the radio coverage, how that affected news broadcasts, and then looking at social media, how everybody now has a phone in their hand that can record, be a camera. You don't have to carry around all this equipment anymore. So what does that mean for reporters, and what does that mean for the general public? How we can use social media as a tool to find out if there is a tip coming in, but how we can't really use Twitter to be a news media that we can actually, it's not a source. So getting people to understand that is part of our job. And because many of our employees here at the museum come from a journalism background, we really understand how to tell that story in a very different way. We're not looking at ancient history. We are in some places, we're looking at ancient history, but in the majority of our galleries, we're looking at how news is covered today, right now.
With almost everyone owning a mobile phone, becoming instant photographers follows. Govan Carr says what matters most of the time is how one seizes the moment, captures it, and lets imagery tell the rest.
Well, with Instagram, everybody's almost like an award-winning photographer. How that affects coverage. One of the questions we always ask our Pulitzer Prize winners is, what kind of camera do you use? And some will say, my phone is not a camera, my phone is a phone. And some will say, the best camera I have is the one that's with me. So it could be a phone, it could be all of their, famous equipment. We actually have a selection of the famous cameras that were used to take Pulitzer Prize winning images just down here. So you see, it can be an old time camera, it can be a digital camera, the evolution of that. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. It depends on the person who's taking the picture. It's how that person sees the moment, captures the moment, and how the artistry of that picture. Sometimes it's about time and place, but oftentimes it's about the imagery that they're capturing.
In this time when information comes from multiple sources, accurate news delivery is crucial to protecting the freedom we now enjoy.
News is old. Museum patrons can experience the history of news and the role of news in major historic events through interactive exhibits that tell the story of storytelling. Reporting from the Museum here in Washington, D.C., I am Eliza Gonzalez Manglikmot, 1 with 25.
Thank you, Eliza. When we come back, in Canada, monster trucks invade Vancouver. In Florida, Tampa's streetcar creates an interesting commute. Eagle News Washington, D.C. Weekend Edition will return shortly. This is Eagle News Washington, D.C. Weekend Edition. I'm Alan Basoyahe. Monster trucks are those very large trucks with enormous tires driven across rough roads. They are featured in shows where they drive over and demolish smaller automobiles. Sounds scary or exciting? Eagle News correspondent Thomas Likeness takes us to the monster truck jam in Vancouver, where these huge vehicles make everyone else eat dust. Literally.
Where I live in Alberta, Canada, pickup trucks are probably the biggest selling vehicle. One of the reasons is a lot of people like to drive off-road, take on the challenges of a rough terrain. But the pickups that I drive and others drive, well, they're nothing compared to the trucks you are about to see. These driving machines are called monster trucks, and monsters they are. Recently in Vancouver at the Monster Truck Jam, the drivers of these 5,000 kilogram plus machines took part in a competition that tested their skills. For the drivers, this is personal. They even name their machines. Tyler Meninga is behind the wheel of the Gravedigger. He talks passionately about his ride.
It's been around for 37 years, since 1982. Yeah. Dennis Anderson created it, and it's a legacy that's been carried on by drivers like myself ever since. So he retired about 1.5 years ago, and we're here to carry on the legacy for him.
But Tyler, what's under the hood?
It's a big block Chevrolet. It's a 540. It's got 1,500 horsepower. Obviously the 66-inch BKT tires here. The shocks, with tons of travel compared to like your normal minivan or something like that. Just outrageous. So also the truck has rear steer too. So you'd think it had 2 steering wheels, but it doesn't. We got a steering wheel to steer the front and then a toggle switch to steer the rear. Bump the toggle whichever way you want to steer, let it go, it comes right back straight for you.
Meninga says spectators are wowed by the stunts these drivers can perform.
We can put these trucks on the nose, balance them up there for a little bit, walk them backwards. The tricks we're doing with the trucks lately is just crazy.
Canadian driver Cam McQueen pilots the Northern Nightmare, the only Canadian entry on the monster truck circuit.
And it was built specifically for the Canadian fans. It was designed by Canadians. Even the name was chosen by a Canadian family out in Ontario.
McQueen says these trucks don't come cheap.
Put it this way, you could probably buy about 7 or 8 minivans for the price of a Monster Jam truck. But yeah, the cost varies. Typically a couple $100,000 will get you into something that can compete with what we run, and depending on your parts usage and damage throughout the season, there's a lot of upkeep as well.
As well as their power, size, and maneuverability, these trucks are flashy, almost like a Philippine jeepney. Maybe if I got some artwork done on my ride, I could compete. Nah, I don't think so. Thomas I. Likeness, Eagle News, I'm 1 with 25.
Thanks, Thomas. From gigantic monster trucks, let's head over to Florida, where a simpler and less complicated ride awaits us. Abby Aragon and Angelo Corpus have the details.
everyone. In almost every metropolitan city in the U.S., you will find various forms of public transportation, from standard forms like buses or trains to enhanced forms like water taxis or mobility rentals. Every city offers great amenities.
So here in downtown Tampa, we decided to take the historical route and ride the Tico Line streetcar. So let's check it out!
Yes, it's 2019, and one can easily get on their mobile phones and order an Uber or Lyft ride. But if you're ever visiting, why not try and fit in with the locals and tour the city the old-fashioned way? According to the website, Tampa's Tico Line streetcar is the city's oldest form of public transportation. Built and operated in 1885, the streetcar system started off with wood-burning steam engines under the Tampa Street Railway Company. Then, in 1893, the company merged with the Florida Electric Company so that the streetcars would run on electricity. One buyout after another for several years, the Tampa Electric Company finally acquired about 53 miles of street tracks in 1913. The Tico Line streetcar system finally ceased operations after World War II, despite carrying almost over 24 million passengers. However, in 2002, the Heritage Line revived in the streets of Tampa due to special taxes on local businesses. Eventually, the Hillsborough Area Rapid Transit was funded a $2.7 million grant from the Florida Department of Transportation to service the Tico Line streetcar operations, so anyone can ride it for free.
Signing off from Tampa Bay, Florida, I'm Angela Food.
And I'm Abby Aragon.
And we're always one with 25.
Thanks, Abby and Angelo. When we come back, in Hawaii, Governor Ige praises Filipinos for promoting diversity while preserving their culture. Eagle News, Washington, D.C. Weekend Edition. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You are watching Eagle News, Washington, D.C. Weekend Edition. I'm Alan Basoyahe. Eagle News correspondent Ron Hamilton takes us to the annual Turno Ball, where the strength of Filipino culture in the Aloha State is manifest. Guest speaker Hawaii Governor David Ige said Filipinos are drivers of the entrepreneurial spirit, instrumental in creating jobs. Here's the report.
Aloha! We're here tonight at the 65th anniversary of the Filipino Women's Club Foundation of Hawaii. Let's see what's going on inside.
We're here celebrating the 65th anniversary and the 45th annual Turno Ball, brought to you this evening by the Hawaii Filipino Women's Club and Associates.
Oh, the ramparts we've won, once again we stream.
The annual fundraising event was recently held at the Ala Moana Hotel near Waikiki. The club's mission is to participate in community service projects, promote the traditional Filipino dress known as turno, and to promote traditions and personal development for its members. Filipinos, and even non-Filipinos, showed up in formal attire in true Filipino fashion. Barong Tagalog for the men, and turno for the women. The event began with the rendering of the U.S. and Philippine national anthems, as well as the Hawaii state song, Hawaii Pono'i. Several groups later presented cultural dance numbers, while others were duly recognized for their contributions in the community in the past year. During his remarks as guest speaker, Hawaii Governor David Ige stated that the Filipino community and other groups help perpetuate the various cultures that make up the state's diversity.
It truly is a celebration of the traditional barong and turnos that is so much a signature of the Filipino community here in the islands. And it's just so wonderful to see the community celebrating the traditional dresses of the Philippines. So many of them have found success here in the islands. You know, we've had Filipinos serve on the Supreme Court. We've had a Filipino-American governor. They have been so successful in virtually every industry that they've undertaken, from healthcare to home care to businesses. You know, they are the drivers of the entrepreneurial spirit that is so important to create the jobs. I just want to say aloha and mabuhay.
Some of the proceeds raised in this event are expected to be awarded as scholarships to help students throughout Hawaii pursue higher education. Reporting from Honolulu, Hawaii, this is Ron Hamilton for Eagle News. I am one with 25.
Mahalo, Ron. That is today's Eagle News Washington, D.C. Weekend Edition. Join us again next week for stories from our bureaus across the nation and around the globe. Visit our websites at Eaglenews.PH and EagleNewsLive.com. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Twitter.com/EagleNewsPH. Thank you for watching. I am Alan Basoyahe. I am one with 25.